When you think of one size fits all, typically in my equation, that means it must be a big boy truck or SUV and it fits you and the family. But this vehicle may cut that equation in half. Hey, welcome to this edition of Road Warrior. I'm your host, Grant Roberson. Now behind me is the 2019 Fiat 500 Abarth. And what it did is take my 6-foot-plus frame and say, well, can I squeeze inside? So the Fiat 500 is pretty straightforward. 2 doors, hatchback, small offerings, fits into tight spots with ease, and heck, you can pick it up, put it in the back of a full-size truck, and get it out when you need it. But what was interesting with my 6-foot-plus frame is, well, I wanted to see how it truly measured up. And interestingly, it's on the inside that feels so cathedral-like. But the first thing I want to know is, well, truly how big is this vehicle? Now, I'm not an NBA All-Star, but even with my modest wingspan, I feel like I could touch the front and the back with just barely a lean to and fro. And the reason for that is because of the modest numbers. Overall, about 144 inches or 12 feet, basically 4 feet less than the average sedan I prefer. As for width, just over 5 feet and just under 5 feet tall. All that making for an easy squeeze into, well, any tight space. Another true number to think about is ground clearance. Snug in the road around about 4 inches. Now, going back to the height, this is where it makes this vehicle feel so much bigger on the inside. First off, with low ground clearance, but modest roof height. That basically means that's where I'm going to feel comfortable, because when I get inside, that cathedral-like feel is all because of this roof height. If you're not familiar with the Abarth, neither am I, but it basically has some heritage that, well, lets people know that this has a little bit of spirit. Now, I've driven a few Fiats. They didn't really excite me or give me wow factor, but it does have, of course, boot, scoot, and boogie. Now, what the Abarth does is take it a little bit to the next level, give you a little bit of tire squeal to boot, plus some nice modest growl there at the back end. Now, that totally contrasts the kind of quirky exterior that Fiats deliver, but that's the nostalgia that you have to either grow to love or love to hate. Now, as for the rest of the vehicle, pretty much nice and stylized. The Abarth adorning the side, that gives you a little bit of indicator of, well, what lies beneath up here. Nice adornment at the 4 corners, no cheap rims here at the corners, but nice darkened accents. Now, what I like is this is the hatchback, 2 traditional doors, nice and broad, but that third door is truly going to deliver one extra thing, which is access to some decent cargo. So what is the true essence of the 500 hatchback? Well, I think it's kind of for the weekend warrior, the couple on the go that wants to take the 4-legged friend and maybe some cargo to get away. Now, is it really for the crew to get people here in the back seat? Probably not, because the interior is really a 2+2 design, typical coupe styling. So instead of picking up the crew, you might only be able to pick up your best friend and get going down the road. But it all culminates here at the back end with the ease that is delivered in the form of a good old hatchback. Nice kind of elongated roof line with this rear spoiler, huge amount of glass, body color all the way around, and just a hint of chrome here and there, basically on the handles right here at the back and in on the front grille. Now, what I also like is safety. Even for this small vehicle, there is a backup camera that culminates right there on that LCD screen front and center on the dash. But pretty much the best part is when you raise this up out of the way and really notice a decent amount of cargo, even with the seats in place. That's going to be around about 9.5 cubic feet as you see it. And what's great is it kind of is a niche that drops down. Now, interestingly, even with the kind of angle this rear hatch, there is a modest look through, I guess, peekaboo that you could see the cargo in place, but they do add a kind of fixed in tonneau cover even for that little void. But pretty much it's going to be very hard to see, so I pretty much think this is kind of just there for, well, extra protection. What you also see is it's a very broad amount of space down here, but very angled as you move up. So that pretty much means it's going to be minimal amount of space as you get to the upper portion. Now let's lay these seats down to truly see how much bigger this can get. To remove the rear tonneau cover, pretty easy, just pop up real quick and lay it down, no problem. That's going to reveal a 50-50 split second row with dual headrest in place. These do extend up quite a bit, basically giving head support for the second row if anyone actually finds home back there. Now, interestingly, they are quite cumbersome to get out. There is a secondary lock here. Typically, I like to have just one lock pull up, but instead you actually have to press over here as well. Makes it just one extra step and kind of a tug of war to get these out of place. You're definitely going to need to remove them when you go to lay these seat backs down. And what you'll notice with my seats, about as far back as they'll go, these will come in impact. That basically means those front seats will have to creep forward just a hair to turn this all into cargo. But once it does, it's easily going to double the amount of space and give you plenty of room to put, well, those bigger sized items inside. Now, before I close this, one thing to note is even with my 6-foot+ frame, this hatch really gets up out of the way. And that's pretty impressive considering how low this vehicle sets. It could be a head-banging affair for any sized individual, but thankfully it really gets out of the way. Now, with this closed, again, backup camera, also note that there are backup sensors. And that's kind of rare on a vehicle this size, but what I noticed is maybe there's a couple of blind spots, and that just gives you one extra level of, well, sensitivity. Big cars, big problems, small cars, little problems. And where it all starts on this one, well, is the ingress into the vehicle. And one thing I've really come to love are smart key systems. And this vehicle, well, looks smart, and with the putter from the back end, you definitely know it has the brawn. But one thing I wish it would kind of deliver is right here at the ingress. And what I'm referring to are keys that are traditionally smart. And that pretty much means you keep it in your pocket and forget about it. Get right to the handle, either put your hand here or press a button, get in with these. But instead, this somewhat big, awkward key fob basically requires your attention. Press the go button to unlock the vehicle and then get in the old traditional way. Now, what I prefer is, well, with a small vehicle, make this even so much smaller and also make it smart. That way there won't be any fiddling around, and well, we get to the new technology that pretty much everyone else is delivering. What also becomes a little bit more awkward is when you get inside. Instead of the good old push button that is traditionally happening across the board, you actually have to go old school with this thing called a key. Then you actually have to, well, put it in the ignition. That just seems so old school. I prefer, let's go new. Now, with Abarth emblazoned on the side, one thing you knew was going to be different was the power plant under the hood, and they definitely stepped it up, specifically with a 1.4 liter inline 4-cylinder turbocharged multi-air engine. All that said basically meant there was going to be good numbers: 157 horses and 183 foot-pounds of torque when coupled with this automatic transmission. Now, if you go with the manual, those numbers will be slightly different. Now, one thing you have to do with an engine like this is deliver airflow, and with a grill, well, that doesn't seem evident. Well, it takes a little bit of innovation. Where it starts is with this lower intake, really delivering nice, great airflow. But of course, they took it one step further, really even putting airflow right around this emblem and of course in the outer niches. Contrasting the small scale from the outside is the cathedral-like feel on the inside. And it really starts with the ingress with the oversized door that really allows for ease of access. Now, what you're going to notice is around about 40 inches of leg room for front occupants. As for backseat drivers, well, that's going to drop to a knee-bleeding 31 inches. So basically, this is kind of that 2+2 design I mentioned earlier. Now, the best comfort truly is in the front. First, starting with the sport style seating. Now, what's great is it's not really bolstered that much, really allowing any individual to find their comfort. Now, one key feature I found is the dual armrest. Some smaller vehicles really minimizing that, only giving the driver armrest, while the Fiat 500 delivers 2. The arch of the roofline really allows for great headroom numbers, even making my 6-foot+ frame feel somewhat dwarfed. But to help with that really is the ability to raise and lower the seats. And the way you do it is with this manual crank, pull it up or down. As for moving the seat forward or backwards, you can simply pull this bar here and manually slide it. Now, front and center on the dash is going to be a small touchscreen system, but it's really easy to use with shortcuts down below, symmetric volume and tune select, and basically all your functionality there on the screen. Below that is going to be climate controls, basically real easy digital up and down, fan speed over here, and basically all your other functions over here as well. What's great is there are heated seats for both front occupants as well. New school thinking is the way here on the gauge cluster, everything digital readout. And what's really great is there is a mode select button here on the right side, and when you press the sport button, this changes over to let you know, and you'll see it in the form of the gauge cluster changing, as well as the turbo PSI gauge there on the left side saying sport. And it really translates to the driving, giving you a little bit more pep in your step and just a little bit more fun. The gear shifter is elevated just a little bit and does shift in with ease, and you can go to a manual-like mode for some nice shifting on the fly. Now down below that is going to be dual cup holders, and I found that even with taller drinks, this is out of the way, allowing for tall drinks to fit in here with ease. As for the connectivity, you will find that in the form of auxiliary jack, USB, and traditional power supply, all right here where you need it. To let the light in, you do have a nice full glass sunroof above the front occupants with only a mesh covering to keep the light out, but if you simply remove that, it does allow more light to come through. As for the operation, just a real nice singular button here to press to open it up. Now it does for this edition of Road Warrior, and a test drive behind the wheel of the 2019 Fiat 500 Abarth edition, a vehicle that scales down its overall size but steps up when it comes to power, really giving a lot of boot scoot and boogie and making you feel a little bit young behind the wheel. Now what's great is it truly is a weekend warrior for the couple on the go, really delivering them and their cargo, but in a pinch you could throw, well, a couple extra friends back here should you need. Now as always, like, thank you for watching this edition of Road Warrior. Keep both hands on the wheel and eyes straight ahead.